Welcome to the PharmaSource podcast.
Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the PharmaSource podcast. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Tom Thorpe, who's the CEO of Afton Scientific, one of our gold partners at CDMO Live in May 2025. Tom, a very warm welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Chris. I'm delighted to be here.
So, Tom, we'll get into the questions in a moment, but perhaps to start with, if you could just give us a bit of an introduction to you and a little bit about the Afton Scientific story. I believe I'm right in saying that there aren't too many founder-led CDMOs in the business that have got quite the track record that you guys had. So we're really keen to hear a bit more about that.
Well, thank you. Yes, I am a chemical engineer, and I worked for two very large pharmaceutical companies in the 80s. My wife is a veterinarian, and we wanted to move off to New Hampshire in the United States. I said, sure. And I wound up working for a small little firm in upstate New Hampshire that had 8 employees, and they were doing OTC, sort of natural cough syrups and the like. And I looked around, I said, oh my God, this could be done. You know, you think when you work for a very large pharma that all things have to be at that scale. So I went to business school. I worked for a little while, investment banking, and actually started a consulting firm with one of my former classmates. And at the same time, I launched Afton Scientific, working both. My original interest in working in investment banking is I thought I'd make enough money to buy a firm, or I would learn enough on how to acquire one. But nonetheless, I just bit the bullet and started Afton from the ground, bootstrapped, and we were making some materials for some natural products, but also some materials for 2 large pharmaceutical companies that were referrals from my fellow engineers when I worked for both of those firms. They said, hey, can you make this? And you can make that. One was a chemical intermediate, and another one was a sterile lubricant. So that was going well. And then I realized, though, if I really wanted to grow, I was going to have to shift gears in the organization, in what our focus was. So my business partner in the consulting firm bought me out, and I took that money and I rolled it in, pulled up all the manufacturing work for the 2 large pharmaceutical companies, and then closed that facility and opened a sterile pharmaceutical business under the name Afton Scientific. And then it's just been a lot of work meeting customers and doing clinical fills and growing the organization. Along the way, hired a lot of young people right out of college and taught them how to make pharmaceutical sterile injectable drugs.
Fantastic. Really fascinating as well to hear the decision to do that yourself as a founder-led business. Obviously, very, very inspirational for us as a founder-led company to also hear, that track record and everything that's developed over the last 20 or so years. Tom, thank you. To give us a bit more detail about Afton Scientific. What differentiates you as a CDMO business in today's market, thinking about therapeutic areas, technical capabilities, and maybe if you could share a couple of examples that demonstrate your expertise?
Well, I think a lot of what sets us apart is the origins of the company. Having worked for 2 large pharma, there can be a lot of acrimony, a lot of difficult places to work and excel. And I was never going to allow that to happen at our firm. So when I brought people on, as I said earlier, young people in the early 20s, and we went from 4 to 8, to 20. Now we're 85 employees. The same people that started 20 years ago are still running the company.
Yeah.
So they're now 40 years old, but they have 20 years experience. But the focus has always been a positive environment within the organization and a positive relationship with the customer. And it shows today. If you looked at our approach to customer service, when customers make recommendations about how to run your quality systems, when they have recommendations on this, we're very quick to adapt them. We learned very early on, if we were going to grow, we were going to have to accommodate what our customers wanted. And that has been a culture that's always been with us. We were fortunate when we started, we also not only doing sterile filling, we were also providing pre-sterilized vials or ready to
Yeah.
fill.
Yeah.
And we're in probably nearly 20 countries around the world, 140 customers. Many of them are large pharma, the Johnson and Johnson and Pfizer, Mylan. Many of those companies all send their quality teams here to Charlottesville. And early on, as I said, when they said, we'd like you to do it this way, we'd like your paperwork to look this way, we want these systems in place, we always agreed. When the FDA came through, we always agreed. We didn't fight with anybody, and we benefited from it because to our customers, the most important thing is compliance. The second thing is competency. The third is capacity. And then you get to schedule and cost. Those are the drivers and those are the hurdles. And the more you can take this firm in Charlottesville, Virginia, and make it feel like large pharma organizationally with the paperwork and provide really good customer service and attention to their needs, you'll excel.
We'll definitely talk about some of those specific points later. We'll come back to capacity in a moment. You mentioned FDA there. Maybe you could talk us a little bit through your quality management system, your regulatory compliance approach. You've just given us a bit of an insight there about really adhering to customers' needs and following their wishes. What's the track record and experience like with regulatory inspections, and how do you really ensure that consistent quality across all the operations?
Well, being the organization the size we are, it's easy to implement systems. It's easy to train the organization because we're all on one site, and it's a tight group. So we all experience the regulatory pressures uniformly. We're inspected now by both CBER and CDER. In addition, we've had the MHRA. From the United Kingdom. We've also been inspected on site by the PMDA, the Japanese. So we are approved for sterile injectables export to Japan. Mm-hmm. So that has always been a fortunate event for us to attract such high level regulatory agencies, and they're here all the time. And of course, the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, is here also because we have Schedule II approval. That's a main driver. One of the other things that helps us on the quality side is we don't have the barriers that I saw at large pharma between the quality departments and the manufacturing departments. Issues are everybody's issue, and it's a great relief to the quality department, and it makes everybody's life much easier. And needless to say, our customer's perspective. The other important element, as I was saying, what's important to your customer is trust. And so they take a great risk when they sign up with you to make their product, certainly when it's their lead candidate. They need to have access within your organization. They need to be able to embrace and understand what is going on in the organization so they have the confidence that they can that you're going to get the things done the way they want them to do, and they can deal with the other issues within their organization.
The lack of barriers between quality manufacturing, the different departments, that's just a product of a smaller organization that's grown as one, that's on one site still, etc. That's just one of the key benefits, I would imagine.
Yes.
Okay. Tom, you talked about customer service, about trust, which obviously is very central to your organization. And I think that's a nice segue into the next question around the approach that you would take with new client partnerships, which obviously is, so key to the growth of a CDMO. So from initial engagement through to tech transfer, we're really interested in how you'd handle knowledge transfer and ensuring project success, whether that be with a big pharma company or a virtual biotech. How does that look?
You grow by two ways. You get new customers, or you get additional products from your existing customers. And we're very fortunate with some very loyal customers who are pushing us to grow in other modalities so that they can push more products through. And they trust us. They're leading us. So we're excited about that. The other side, the interesting one, are the people who call you up for the first time. Usually they're very angry. They're very frustrated with who they've been working with. Maybe they're coming from an abused relationship. They're given their size, maybe they're not getting the schedule that they want. Maybe they're getting price increases. Maybe their quality problems with their current CDMO. Everybody has a bad day, but they usually come to us in a very frustrated form. So we work with them, embrace them, and set up a project team, and they get immediate feeling that they're dealing with the whole organization, much more than a black box or some segment of the organization. And it does spirit a lot of relationships. Some of our customers come out here and actually like to spend a little more time to social with the company. It's that feeling that they're trusting you to take care of their product. Interestingly, because we're a small mid-size, there are certain customers that align better with us than others. Imagine, I was just thinking about this morning. There are big universities, and then there are small private colleges, and people make choices about where they go, whether they want to go to big public university. But when you come to, say, a small college, we're giving them much more attention. We're giving them features that they are not going to find at a more impersonal organization. And it shows with the loyalty of the customers who keep wanting us to move and adapt more and more of their products.
Thank you. That makes perfect sense. Digital integration is becoming increasingly important for sponsors. How are you helping your clients achieve real-time visibility into their projects, and what technology investments are you needing to make to support this?
So we're about 3 years into adoption of some electronic data and puts it with management systems, LIMS, of course. We were paper-based years ago. We've been moving out of that continuously. So we've adapted SAP and metrics and things which gives us insight to the performance of the departments. And also that is helpful to our customers to understand yields better, to understand how other processing way. It gives us the data to be able to reduce the manufacturer costs or shorten lead times to process release of batches. In addition, we're well into paperless for documentation management. We're not at electronic batch records, but that's on the horizon for us. These are programs we've had now, the three major programs, but we'll continue to add those as we grow. But what's more important, there's a electronic data transfer, but what's really important is the frequency of meeting your customers and talking to your customers. We'd like to meet weekly with them on all these projects. I don't think it's healthy to fire and forget with your CDMO, turn over the project and then not be regularly talking with them. It's the little things that come out, the scheduling anomalies, the raw material anomalies. All of those things are really, really important, and that cannot be handled electronically.
Yeah, so that links and goes back to your point about the importance of customer service and relationships and trust, right? The digital piece is a great platform for monitoring and evaluation, but as you say, meeting regularly, communicating regularly is a key part, presumably, of the service and the relationships that you're building.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about capacity. So, capacity management obviously is normally a very important topic. It's a critical concern. How do you balance capacity allocation between existing clients and new opportunities? And what's your approach to longer term planning?
Add capacity. It's as simple as that. As I said earlier, customers are saying, can we scale? Can you offer pre-filled syringes or cartridges? Can you do this? When you get this in, we're going to move our products over. Can you do lyo? We have 6 products. We'd love to have you do because you've been so successful. If you're successful in the first, you'll get added a second project and a third project, and they will stick with you because you're not a problem for them. You get it done, and they can focus on other things. But capacity there's a huge initiative. I've grown the company as we said in this as a sterile aseptic processing for over 20 years. And we've constantly, every year, we've reinvested in technology, we've reinvested in buildings. But I recognized about 4 years ago that the technology investment is really, really soaring. The cost now with isolator systems, what was acceptable, RABs was acceptable, now it's isolators. Before that, it wasn't even RABs. So if we wanted to stay ahead of the game, we're going to need to continue to make investments in those areas. And that's just beyond a self-funded organization. You can't accumulate money fast enough to roll that in without putting the organization financially at risk. And we've always run the company very, very conservatively. We've never lost money, and we've never over leveraged ourselves at all, other than to buy buildings. So we've took on a financial partner who has experience in this area. We had a lot of choices to do, and we think we paired up with the right firm that has experience and understanding of what we want to do. With that now, as we speak, we're adding a pre-filled syringe line, an isolator line right now. And in one of our existing buildings, we're relocating and expanding our lab by probably 4 or 5-fold in size. And we've acquired property, and we're in the process, 6.5 acres were adjacent to us, and we're in the process of constructing a new facility that's over 400,000 square feet, well over 400,000 square feet. And it'll be an investment of well over 200 million.
Congratulations. There's a lot been happening there. And
Yes.
as you say, obviously needing to stay ahead of your customers' demands and prospects' demands obviously is
Right.
really key in this business, and great with the financial partnership as well. Tom, you touched on soaring costs in some areas, which obviously is where we are today. What's your overall approach to cost management and continuous improvement? And how do you ensure cost transparency while also driving value for clients?
Well, if you look at the cost profile in manufacturing sterile injectable drug products, variable cost is a very small amount. Your components, vial stoppers, seals, even direct labor is not a very high cost to your finished product. Which are costly is your API, your pure drug substance, which the customer usually provides, and it's overhead. And you have enormous amounts of overhead. People in the quality department amount to 32% of the staffing at Afton Scientific. It's a breathtaking percent if you think of any industry.
Yeah.
1 out of 3 people has a Q in front of their title. And that's really important because it pays off. It pays off in compliance. It pays off in reduced problems on the manufacturing floor, things like that all improve in the long run, improve the profitability and minimize the costs for your customer. Other areas is getting utilization of your assets. So you build a new building in an isolator, you need to keep the production flowing through. So the difference of being able to run a product in 6 hours instead of 12 hours on the production line, it reduces the allocated overhead cost to your customer, and also opens up capacity for us to put another product in there, which saves money for everybody.
Really interesting to hear. I mean, it's a very important question for everyone in this market that we're in today.
Yeah, your customers are very sensitive to manufacturing ideas that say we can shorten the batch time from 4 hours down to 2 hours, or save a day in pre-production work. That's all very interesting to them. They have to wrestle with that, with the cost of doing stability batches. They have only so much bandwidth to take on these kinds of projects. So we will put them forth as cost savings. If you think about how a product gets launched, certainly if it's an ANDA or a generic or newly formulated, is oftentimes they develop a formulation that they know works and puts that on stability in files. But it may not be the best formulation. It may not be the best process, but it's one they confidently could get done and get it filed. And then after a period of time of making so many batches, you start to realize that, okay, now let's do a maintenance on this product. Let's relook at how we're making some things. It's profitable now, success. So here's what we can do to try and improve it. Maybe improve the yield, shorten manufacturing times, less component loss.
The point you made about the importance or the scope of the overhead within the cost base, and 1 in 3 people effectively being related or within the quality function. I mean, that's a fascinating statistic, really. And as you say, it's a significant part of the cost, but I guess helps the engine run smoothly in so many other areas. So it's a necessary spend, right?
Yeah.
Changing tack slightly, another topic that we talk about so much in this industry, really around ESG, sustainability, etc. These are also becoming very important factors in CDMO selection. What steps have you taken, are you taking to reduce environmental impact and help sponsors meet their Scope 3 emission and other sustainability targets?
There's sort of 2 answers to this. In new construction, so many efficiency, sustainability things have been built into modern construction now. There are LEED ratings and such. So it's almost unavoidable that your building that you're building today is going to be far more sustainable than it would have been 10, 20 years ago. So you're adopting these things, whether you know it or like it or not. We do try and think about those technologies that have tangible benefits rather than, synthetic or imaginary benefits that just seem to be window dressing. We won't spend money on those kinds of things, but we will spend money on things that have real value. And that's, in the building, in your building construction and certain operational things. But for the most part, I have to say this, FDA doesn't care about ESG. FDA cares about public health. That's what their number. And so this industry has gone from, and I've seen it because I've been around so long, where you reuse equipment, you wash things, you reuse them, you dry them, to single-use disposables. I mean, this industry is not an ESG friendly industry. Anything under 1,000 liter batch is probably being made with disposable stuff. You use a stainless steel pair of scissors and it touches product, you just throw it away. The regulatory burden to try and prove that pair of shears, stainless shears, is clean and free from the foreign product or soap from cleaning, it's just not worth it. So sadly, the industry doesn't care about the FDA and the regulatory bodies don't care about it. It's not their job. As far as customers go, you got to remember the customer's focus is on your regulatory posture, record, your competence at making things, your cost, your schedule, the trust. When you get down to the things like your ESG, I don't think we've ever been asked that question, to be honest, Chris, ever. If we were in another industry, it would be totally different. But I don't think the customers get that far down the list.
That's a fascinating insight, and thinking about that on the kind of FDA regulatory level, and ultimately their view being on public health. And when it comes to sponsors, I guess there's an awful lot of other factors that are super important. Do you see that evolving? Do you see that changing much as we go forward?
No, not really. I mean, there are certain things, as I started out saying, there are certain things you're going to adopt just because that's what's there. You know what I mean? If you're building a building, they're going to be using sustainable materials. The designs are going to be sustainable, and the old materials and designs aren't really going to be available at all. in a production environment, there are some things you can do about recycling processed water, maybe things that are non-product contact. That's where you're going to find opportunity. But anything product contact, it's going to be no one's going to mess around with trying to recycle and reuse.
That's very interesting to understand that. Tom, final question. Just thinking a bit about the future and vision, really fascinating to hear your story and about the development of Afton Scientific and, where you've come from and the growth to a 84, 85 person organization, etc. What's the vision going forward? If you look 3 to 5 years into the future, how are you looking at investments, growth strategy, clients' future needs? What does the future look like?
Well, harking back to when I was with a little firm in New Hampshire with, I don't know, I think it had 8 people. They were started in the 1800s, the same year Bristol Myers was started. But as the regulatory and the technology advanced, this firm, they grew until the early 1900s. And then as the regulations and technologies, they failed to invest and they continuously shrunk. And they were 8 people making some, home style cough syrups and things like that. And that made an impression on me that, as I spoke to earlier, if you're not reinvesting in your company, in your people and your assets and your technologies, in this industry, you're going to fall behind and you're going to shift your customer base because the top products, the top customers want you to be at the forefront of technology and regulatory standards. They really want you at the front edge because they don't want any kind of problem. So when you're asking for the 3 to 5 years, I have a $25 million project going on for a new line right now, pre-sterilized isolator for cartridges, vials, and syringes. And then as I spoke to the over 400,000 square foot building, which will put Afton close to $500,000 in square feet. And that building may hold as many as 8 production lines. So, and we will adapt to what our customers want us to make. If they want a lyo, we will have a lyo. If they want ultra high speed, you'll find ultra high speed, whatever it is that they're asking. And that's our 3 to 5 years. And we're hoping in 2.5 years, we will be we will have that facility in our hands.
Tom, it's been a fascinating conversation. That's all we've got time for today on the podcast, but we certainly look forward to hearing much more on Afton Scientific within CDMO Live in a couple of months' time. Thank you so much for your insights and your time today. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more from you again at some point. But thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Chris.
Experience the future of contract manufacturing at CDMO Live 2025. Join us at the World Trade Centre Rotterdam on May the 7th and 8th, 2025 for an exclusive event that brings together the sharpest minds in biopharma outsourcing. For 2 days filled with market insights, best practices and partnering. So head to cdmolive.com to download the agenda and to book your ticket.